Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the fourth and final installment of our winter speaker series, The Archaeological History of Washington, Connecticut. This year marks Steep Rock's centennial, 100 years of protecting what you love and conserving the Litchfield Hills. In recognition of this milestone, our speaker series and other planned events are focused on various aspects of our rich history and work, and we're in for a real treat this evening. To keep things running smoothly, please remain muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, I kindly ask that you use Zoom's chat feature found at the bottom of the window, and we will be sure to address all questions at the end of the presentation. Also, please keep your eye out for a short questionnaire following the program. Your feedback is very appreciated and will be taken into account for developing future offerings. Lastly, before I introduce our speaker, my sincere thanks to all of our supporters who have shaped what Steep Rock is today. Special recognition goes out to local businesses you see here who are sponsoring our centennial. Please pay them a visit after your next hike or consider their services. With that, please join me in welcoming tonight's speaker, Craig Nelson. Craig is an avocational archaeologist who grew up in the area and has been working in the archaeological field since junior high school. He's an adjunct professor at Western Connecticut State University, where he teaches an archaeological field school and serves as the chairman of the board at the Institute for American Indian Studies, where he chairs the collections committee. Additionally, he oversees archaeological digs for the Litchfield Hills Archaeological Club and belongs to several professional organizations. With that, I turn it over to Craig.
Thank you very much, Merlin. And if we can get the share, let's see here. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We're going to learn a little bit about the prehistory of the Washington Warren area. It goes back a lot further than most people realize. And we will start with the glacial period. And approximately 21,000 years ago, we were covered by the Laurentian ice sheet. It covered all the way down to and through Long Island. We had approximately 1 mile thick ice on top of where we are today. And then we started getting warming. We go into about 14,800 years ago. That ice sheet goes up along basically through the Great Lakes and just south of where the St. Lawrence Seaway is today. And then after that left, we started getting vegetation, which was followed by the megaflora and caribou and other animals into the area. The megaflora included your mastodon. You had giant beaver. They grew up to 7 feet long. The mastodon was here right up through till the time we think that the first people came into the area. There was one found over in Farmington called the Pope mastodon. We've had the remains, the skeletal remains of him at the Institute for American Indian Studies twice on display. He, as far as we can see, there was no indication of any butchering or anything with him. The damage to his skull was done by the original people digging a pond, and they thought that the skull was an old stump, and they started to smash it until they realized what it was. Then around 13,000 years ago, maybe a little after, people started coming in, and they hunted the caribou, That was one of their main things. They hunted with atlatl and darts. This depiction here is from over at Mashantucket Pequot Museum. It shows the native on the left holding an atlatl, and his dart is already out in the air going toward a caribou. The people at that time used fluted points with their items, and these three here are local points. They are found two sites. The first two are from 6LF1, which is Hopkins Field, and the other small one on the right is from Wells Farm, which is now Master Costa. The first two, the first one is considered a Whipple type of a point. That puts it close to the 13,000 years old. And the other two are what we would call a Bull Brook paleo points. That puts them around the 12,500-year-old mark. The are four known paleo sites in the town of Warren in Washington. The one is Templeton in Washington Depot, which is the second oldest stratified site in the state of Connecticut. The next one is the Wells Farm. And then we have the Hopkins site on Lake Wormwog and also on Arrow Point. I don't have pictures of the items from Arrow Point. They're in a private collection. Hope to get those photographed in the future. These are from Templeton. Templeton being the second oldest stratified site, which means that there are layers between all of the levels. So we have at Templeton, there's woodland, there's archaic, and there is paleo. And because of where it's situated, there was flooding between all of the time periods, which separates all of them with sterile soil. So it's easy to date a time period. All of the stuff at Templeton is just a hair over 12,000 years ago. The first picture over here on the left, these are two miniature points. They are fluted. And we have a couple other larger ones, but no complete final points have been found there. The picture on the right is what we call channel flakes. And these are the flakes that are produced when they create the flute on a paleo point. So if you compare the length of these points, these channel flakes, you can see that to make a point, it would be a lot longer than the little ones we have over here. So they were making very large fluted points at Templeton. Now, the people here were hunter-gatherers. They traveled a lot. Recent theories are that the people here traveled all the way to northern New England, up to places like northern New Hampshire. There's a couple of paleo sites up there. And they were moving with the caribou herds as they migrated from the south to the north. And in their trips going back and forth, they also got most of their material to make these points out of what we call Normanskill chert, which is found just south of Albany, New York. So you can see that these people traveled a lot within 1 year. This piece here came from Templeton. It's very hard to recognize for some people. It's a small scraper that has been well worn on this edge. This piece here, this little scraper, and these two points here are now over in New York State. We've collaborated with the State Museum in Albany with Dr. Jonathan Lothrop to have everything tested for use where. and protein. This will tell us what these items were used on, or what they hit, or what they scraped, or anything like that. And that can tell us a lot about what the people were working with at this site. We hope to gain quite a bit from here. The After the Paleo period, we now move on to the Archaic. The Archaic was one of the longest time periods. Um, it started about 10,000 years ago, and it continued up until, I'm sorry, it started about 8,700 years ago, and continued up to 2,700 years ago. Uh, because of the long time period, we have the most types of points. Uh, People started to settle down a little. They were hunting and they were fishing. We know that they were fishing. We have things like in this photograph here, this is a net sinker that they used when they had nets. These net sinkers have been found next to Lake Warmlog. Um, we have also found over next to Lake Warmlog what we call an ulu, or a fish knife. This is made out of ground slate. The chips on it are from a plow, so those are recent. But all of the graining that you see here is fish oil, as they were used as knives to clean fish. During that time period, in the early part, we have what we call bifurcated points. This is from the early Archaic time period. It was the shortest of all of the Archaic time periods. This is a beautiful piece. Uh, the workmanship on it is fantastic. It's honestly the finest one I've ever seen in Connecticut. It's made out of Norman scale chert, and it was found at what we call the Taylor site, which is just south of the new office building for Steep Rock. The site is now home to two ranch houses right on Christian Street. We have a small collection from that site, and everything there was archaic. But this is one of the finest pieces, when you understand lithics and so forth, that you'll observe. There's across here is one, what we call an overshot flake. It goes from one side all the way to the other. Normally, flakes will come from a side and go up to a center. Um, Very skilled person made this piece. During that time period, we also have what we call a Vosburg point. Here again, this is another unusual one because it has uh, it's made out of Norman scale chert, but it shows a strip of material within the chert that discolored it. This here again is another beautiful piece. It was found on the Wells farm. The estimated range for this piece is somewhere around 5,200 to 4,500 years ago. Uh, During that time, we got the Vosburgs, and we get into Brewertons and some others. During that time period, they started working with wood, whether it be for making canoes or anything like that. These are axes, stone axes. These here come from the Hopkins site, and stone axes work very well. I have used them. We use them at the museum when we cut certain trees and stuff to make our longhouses and wikis, the poles that hold them up. Besides the axes, they also had adze, uh, which are basically chisels. As you can see, there's an edge here. All of these have a different edge. These are packed and then polished to give them that edge. It's a long process, a very hard process to take, and but it creates a very sharp edge, and they're used more for shaving out wood. I don't have photographs up, but they also had what we call celts, which instead of having a straight edge across here, would have a scooped edge, and that would work on the inside of a canoe very well. Toward the end of the Archaic time period, we have what we call uh, in western part of Connecticut, originally we called these Snookhill points. Um, that was given to them by a man over who used to be the state archaeologist in New York, William Ritchie. Now most people call them Atlantic. It's a similar point that's used, from the Maritimes down in the coast of New Jersey and Maryland, all the way up through to Maine. You'll see this type of a point during this culture. These points here that are up here uh, are all different materials that were used in the area. The first one is a Nomenskill chert. The next one is a siltstone. The next one is a rhyolite, which we do not see in Western Connecticut very often, but more so in the eastern side of the state. The last one is out of a jasper, which comes out of Pennsylvania. Um, it was used heavily in the Paleo period, and toward the end of the Archaic and into the Woodland period, you see the use of jasper. It comes from a little further travel to get here. In the Woodland period, it was probably traded. During the Paleo period, it was from the people themselves picking it up when they were there. The next one here. Now, these are what we call small stem points. They cover a large time period. Through the Archaic and on into the early woodlands, when I first started years ago, we called all of them Lamoka points, as named by Ritchie. Then they were called Sylvan Lake because they found a site in New York called Sylvan Lake. Uh, then people started trying to cut them out and say, well, they're Wading River from this site. They're, excuse me, um, Bear Island, and other names, Squibnocket, stem points. Uh, Personally, I've gotten to the point that some of them I can pick out between what people say, but I tend to go along with a lot of the archaeologists that we call them all small stem points. They tend to have been used for knives more than, or as part of a toolkit more than something that was used with a dart or and a spear. Um, because as most of them, as you can see, if you can take this one where I have my pointer on, you'll see that it's not uh, what we would call in a straight line. It would, if you put it on a stick and try to throw it, it would curve off to the side because of the asymmetrical shape of it. So it's not a great item for a point. Now we come to the woodland. Woodlands they settled. They brought in agriculture. They brought in pottery. They were here for the long term. Bow and arrow came into use during this time period. This time period goes from about 2,700 years ago up until uh, contact period. And the agriculture they were growing would have been maize, we know today as corn, beans, and squash. The three go together as what we call the Three Sisters. The corn grows up, the beans grow up around the corn, and the squash grows around the ground and keeps the weeds out. So they work very well together when they're planted. These points here are all Madison points. Here again, most of the points that I'm showing are from the Hopkins site because of the number of different types and so forth that we have from that site. These are all made for bow and arrow. The Madison point, the Lavana point, this was the time that natives used bow and arrow instead of atlatls and darts. Now, we're back to Wells Farm, a couple of the sites. Wells Farms is one of five sites on Steep Rock property that we have at the collections at the museum. Wells Farms, the main collection was done from work by King's Grant, which was a survey team back in 1987. They did a survey because they were proposing to build condominiums at what is now the cornfield just north of the office and farm buildings. The type of work they did, they not only did they have archaeologists, but they had biologists, geologists, and they did a full survey. And honestly, that survey probably should still be in the land use office at the town hall. Um, I remember it being done because I was on the wetlands in Washington at the time. But the points we have here, this first one, is a Neville. This is an early archaic point, and we go all the way up through to the Snook Hill. Over on the second photo here was a couple of Snook Hills, and these are all from the late or terminal archaic time period. So the site covers everything from the Paleo up through, and this shows you how they did the survey. They came in with a bulldozer and they scraped the top layers off. And then people went and did test pits within where they scraped and off onto the side. The problem with this is a lot of the artifacts were found in the dirt piles. So not in situ, so we don't know exactly at what depth or anything else. But as you can see, they dug with the bulldozer a trench. They basically pushed the dirt aside, and then members of the crew went in and did scraping and some test holes down through. Um, this is more of a salvage, what I would call salvage archaeology. Today, that's the only way we do it today, is salvage. Um, if we have a good site uh, that we want to get, like Templeton, where we want the full context of what is in the soil, we would not do this. Um, it's it's just a very poor way. But at the time, it's what they had to do to get their survey done. They got the information, and it led to a lot of information that is now stored at the museum. The other sites that are on Steep Rock property um, are the Kirby Brook site. This was dug by Ned Swaggart, and there's a full book on it. There tends to be problems with this site is downriver. A lot of historic items are found at great depths and are mixed in with other time periods. The other sites would include the scout area, the riding rink, and also up at the quarry in Hidden Valley. Um, those three sites are all have basically all historic items and nothing pre-contact period. Next slide here is the Taylor site. This is the site where I showed you that bifurcated point from. These are some other points that are from that site. Um, they're basically all of them are archaic points. One unusual one here is the third one in the top row, which is an oriental fishtail, but it was reworked into a drill. Um, they use drills in basically to get into wood um, or stone, a soft stone. Uh, During the archaic time period, they had soapstone bowls, and to make them, they would have to travel from our area to either East Litchfield, West Torrington, up to Barkhamsted. This is where the steatite was found to make these bowls. And they would take quartz chunks and they would basically pound on the steatite to form a bowl and then break it out, and then they'd have to carry it back. So when the woodland period came along and they started using clay for pottery, uh, it saved a lot of work and labor, and I'm sure a lot of people were very happy with that. Um, the one point I do see in here is in the second row, it says middle point. This happens to be basically a woodland point. So it is at a later time period than all the rest of them. The next site here is a collection that basically just came into the museum uh, about 2 months ago. The collection itself, from what we can gather in the paperwork that came with it, was collected about where the area is for the office of the Steep Rock Association. It's basically, it covers a big area, time period. Most of these are archaic pieces, except for the very first quartz point here. This is a squib knocket triangle. Um, Beautiful point, and made out of quartz. The rest of these are basically all, these three are Norman Skill-Chert. The next one is rhyolite. That's Norman Skill. The knife on the far end is quartz. And then the bottom row, they are all Norman Skill-Chert except for the one uh, quartz point. Now, this is Lake Wormwog, as you know. Harrow Point's over here. We know there's a site there. There was a site over at the Steep Rock, where the state park is. I'm sorry to say that contractors working for the state destroyed it before the CRM team could get in and finish their work there. We have Hopkins Field site just over past what is the country club over in the valley over here. On the back side, uh, I helped dig a cave back there when I was probably junior high school, um, and that which was a rock shelter then. There's, besides the Hopkins Field, we have Deer Run site, which is overlooking the lake on a plateau. This is a highly unusual site. Uh, don't know of any in Connecticut that are like it. It's a small site, but it has multiple hearths. Um, Up to in 1 meter square, there was 5 hearths. These are not large. They were temporary, so they were not long time setups at this point. We've we have a lot of pottery from here. It's a site that was never plowed or anything, so we have we're working with an archaeologist who's a grad student at UConn, who is going through the seeds and other flotation item that were burnt in the hearths, and she's going to be able to tell us identify what the plant material they came from, what the seeds were, and also there's shell nuts. Then in there too. I think I remember seeing some beach. Um, and this, and I have to throw in one piece that nobody knows what it is. This is from Hopkins. This is a spool stone. It is smoothed all the way around and worked on both ends. They are found up and down the Hudson River. This is the only one that I've ever been able to find information on in the state of Connecticut. In New York State, they were found in situ in the Middle Woodland time period, and that's about all we know about them. But it's a nice piece. I like to show it because I did find it. Um, and then as far as in the future, we have places like the Templeton, which in my photograph, that's one of the digs we did down at Templeton. There's a lot more work to do there. Um, we've done most of the paleo work. Dr. Zach Zinger has written up quite a bit on it. And we've, over the years, have found archaic and woodland stuff. These have not been studied yet. We found a couple of years ago what we believe is the floor of a large woodland structure. Um, there's a Gulf of Maine archaic time period within the site, and all of these have to be studied. Um, that's the problem with a lot of the stuff that we have. I can bring up a lot of different slides and stuff of points, and what we have is uh, a lot of stone. And in sites like Templeton and Deer Run, we have the ability to learn a lot more by doing testing on the items themselves for protein or wear used. We can look at what we find in the soil, and if we take soil samples, we can get pollen out of them and see what time of year, what was growing at the time. And these all help to bring the story back to of all these thousands of years of people being here, because there was no written history. And if you're out in the field and you see a point and you pick it up, or walking through the woods and you pick it up, it's a point, it's a stone, and there's no provenience with it. There's no story to it, no background. We don't know what it was used for, why, um, who used it, and how they used it. Uh, these are all questions that we keep asking ourselves. So that, like, if you are walking on steep rock property on a trail, and if you see something, I would highly recommend that you take a photograph of it, cover it up, and tell somebody at the office. Don't just pick it up and take it home, because there may be an important site there. The one that we have at Deer Run is a very important site. It's not big, and it was found by somebody who just went over and dug a hole and basically was going to loot the site. So it's taken care of, and there's a lot of history to be learned there. We have other sites similar. Um, Woodruff Cave, which is at the base of Lake Warmog. That was excavated back in the 80s, late 70s, and has a great preservation of bones of animals going back into the woodland time period, which is something that we don't get in the Northeast, the preservation of organic material. So we don't have the wooden structures. We don't have the clothing. And for the most part, we don't have bones unless they've been calcified in a fire. So another site like that Woodruff Cave, which is needs a lot more studying, is a fantastic site. So in this area, we have a lot of history, but a lot of it has not been what I would say um, covered over the years. It's been um, because of basically most of the work in the state of Connecticut is being done by what we call CRM teams. These are cultural research management. And they go out wherever there's a job that the state or the federal government has put funding into. They have to do an archaeological survey before. And honestly, that is how the site in Avon was found, which is now the oldest stratified site in the state of Connecticut. They were redoing a bridge, and because of it, they found that site. So there's a lot of sites in the northwest corner because we don't have the infrastructure that's out through the rest of the state. And we hope that people will bring stuff forward to us as it comes around, and we'll go from there. Now, I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions from people.
Craig, this is Monica.
Yes,
Just a couple of questions before you move on. That piece you have right in front of you,
yes,
did you say you found it, correct?
yes,
Do you have any theories? You said, there's so much that we don't know because this wasn't written down. Do you have any thoughts about what it may have been used for?
no.
Okay.
I have talked to multiple archaeologists, most of them in New York State because that's where these have been found, and nobody has a true sense of what it was used for.
Got you. And then just a quick question about, what they used. Sorry, how did they make the points that you were showing us, whether it was from quartz or the other materials? Just how did they get that point to happen?
Um, that is called flint napping or napping. And if I take it back to a good one here that we can, all right, here. Basically, they would start with a stone and a piece of chert, and with another stone, they would break off large flakes, and then they would break it down to a smaller piece. Then they would use deer antler to kind of shape it by still hitting it. And when I say the napping is it's an art. And then they would take the tip of a piece of a deer antler and they would press it on the edge, and that would give you these little serration edges here. And with the work, they would try to keep that. Uh, some of them made stronger serrations, and other ones were uh, try to make it as straight an edge as they could, depending on what they were used for.
Thank you. Lewis is asking how far back was the Ice Age?
The Ice Age left this area. Well, like I said it before, it was 20 to 21,000 years ago that it was here. And 15,000 years ago, it was up to the north of us. I don't know exactly how long it was when it started.
Thank you so much.
Well, and I see another one here from, we find Templeton? Uh, Templeton came to us because of some points that were found by the property owner on the property. And they advised the people up at the museum. That collection is at the museum. And then they went down and they started digging. Um, Roger Moeller did some, uh, he's the one who really found the paleo because he went down deeper than most people normally do. He wanted to see how far he could go and where the glacial uh, stone layer was. And because of that, he found the paleo layer. Um,
Gotcha. Mark is asking, was Lake Warramog formed when the last ice age receded, or was that man-made?
no, Lake Warmog is the second largest natural lake in the state. It was formed by the glacier, and the largest being Bantam Lake, with both of them being formed by the glacier, the retreating glacier. Um,
And then Tyler's asking, have any animal bones associated with archaeological sites been identified to species level?
To which?
To species level.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Some of the stuff over at Woodruff Cave had there was a girl working on it for a while. She didn't get to finish her project there. And there's been elk, deer, beaver, woodchuck, rabbit, and so forth found at that site that we know of right now. And the unusual piece, there was one shark's tooth found in there. So that had to be traded from the shoreline.
Yeah, I don't really see too many sharks in Lake Warramog, thankfully. Tim is asking, he noted Robert Goodby did some work in Keene. Has any relationship been found with your findings in Connecticut?
Uh, his work up there, let's see, he worked on the paleo site, if I remember, near the school. Um, Basically, most of the published stuff, I don't know of any relationship between the two. Um, there possibly was, because during the paleo time period, there was very few people, and they were traveling back and forth. Like I said, they were up in Jefferson, New Hampshire, which is up near the Canadian border. Um, so there's a couple of sites up there that Dick Bouvet had been working on with the scrap team. He's a retired state archaeologist in New Hampshire.
Thank you. We have one that has come in. Have these sites, super interesting, have these sites shown us anything about the people who lived here and used these tools?
Well, we find out most about the people is not from the tools, uh, or from the points. It's from the other stuff that we gather from the sites, uh, like what we get out of the hearts that shows what they were eating. Um, the pottery, if we get good pieces, we can have that sent out and they can do pull lithic. Yeah, it gets tested for. Oh, shoot, off the top of my head, I'm forgetting the name now. And they can tell us. The scientists will be able to tell us what that pot was used for. At Deer Run, we had a couple of pieces tested. Um, One pot was full of pine pitch, which was used as a glue. Another one had fish, so they've been cooking fish up there. So,
Thank you. Dan is asking, would most adults back then know how to construct points from napping, or was there specialized craft people who they'd go to, experts in the area who produce most of the points for a community?
most people today feel that most people would have known how to make a point. There would have been people that were more skilled at it than others, but they would have learned as very young age to start making points, and other tools, because they would have made knives to use and other things too. So everybody needed the skill. Um, they even your scrapers or something, for scraping a hide, it's the same process. And to resharpen the tool, it's the same process. So just about everybody would have had to learn how to do it.
Yeah, for survival, I imagine. It wasn't clear if you're just pausing in your presentation or if you're at the end.
I'm sorry?
Were you just taking a pause and have more slides, or are you?
No, that was the last one.
Wonderful. And I know folks have been asking, how they contact you directly. So if you wouldn't mind popping
Yep,
in your email
I'll put that into
in the
the chat
chat,
right
that would
now.
be wonderful. A couple of other questions. If we're walking in the woods, and on steep rock trails or elsewhere, and we see something that looks like an artifact, how can we identify it from, a rock? Could you give us just some pro tips on some things to look for?
Uh, that can be hard for a lot of people. It's unless it's really in the shape of a point, and even there are natural rocks out there that are in the shape of points. And a lot of it just comes from experience of being able to pick up the piece and say, "Hey, this was worked by a human being at one point," and another piece wasn't. That's why, honestly, we do have at the museum a couple of times a year we have what we call ID Day, and we
Mm.
invite people that have items to bring in, and we will identify them for them.
Oh, what a great resource. Oh,
But
that's
I do
terrific.
ask everybody, don't bring anything from state land or federal land. It's illegal to take it to start with, because that's happened in the past. And honestly, if they're going to pick it up on Steep Rock property, they would have to have permission from Steep Rock itself to take it.
Yeah, thank you for noting that. I was just gonna say
It's
we have a lead, um, don't take anything out of the preserves. I
yeah, no,
think you
it's
mentioned burying it and then calling, taking a picture, burying it, and
yeah,
asking somebody to
that's
come
the
out with
best thing.
terrific
And
advice.
because it that in the long run, you may have found a good site that could
Mhm.
lead to a lot more history down the road. But
Ano-
it
Another
is
question.
illegal to take stuff out of.
Yeah. Like the shark tooth, does a tool or a point made from different stones talk about trading or moving across areas?
It, toward the woodland period, yes, there was more trading. Back in the Paleo, they were traveling and picking the stuff up. In the woodland time period, um, as you go west, we get out into the Mississippi area, and that's where you have your mound builders. They had trade routes that went from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, out to California. They traded for obsidian. Uh, and there's even one site in the Southwest, they've even found feathers from a parrot from down in Central South America. So yeah, trading was.
Wow. Um, let's see. Are there books if some if people want to learn more, where would you recommend they go?
Depends on
Any
what they want to
museum
learn.
books or
If they want to learn about points, uh, there's two books. Um, one is by William Ritchie, and that's published by the New York State Museum in Albany. Uh, in fact, do I have that? Mm,
if you wouldn't mind, we'll be sending participants a
It's
follow-up
called, here, I
survey
have them right
tomorrow.
here.
Oh, okay, great.
That one is called A Topology and Nomenclature for New York State Projectile Points. That was the original book that we all started with years ago.
Mhm.
Um, that was originally published in 1971. It's been upgraded and reprinted. The second one, which is not an inexpensive book, it is published by the Robbins Museum up in Massachusetts, and that is a New England topology of Native American projectile points. Um, it's a lot easier for most people to look at and see because it's the pictures are done with 3D scanning, photography, in full color, and they're life size. Um, that helps a lot of people there.
That's great. I know we'll be sending participants a survey tomorrow, and if you could share with us any books that come to mind between now and tomorrow morning that we could pass along, that would be great. Just a couple of other questions. Aaron is asking, are there digs that the general public can join?
Uh, at the moment, no, but we are trying to put a couple together. Um, where the Archaeology Club, Litchfield Hills runs through the museum. And we're looking at a couple of sites that we would be inviting the public in to help dig.
So if people are interested, they should contact the museum to get on a list or
Yes,
great. And can you tell us about the collection at the Indian Institute?
that's quite large. 100 plus thousand stone artifacts. And then we have a large ethnographic collection, which includes probably it's one of the largest collection of baskets for the Northeast. We have a lot of beaded items, and also items that were made out of birch bark with porcupine quill decorations. And we have all the way up through, we have modern artwork from native artists. So we try to cover the whole span. We have displays that are permanent, and then we have displays that we turn over on a regular basis so that we can keep showing items instead of just putting them away in a vault somewhere.
Oh, that's amazing. And if people want to go check it out at the museum, are you open during the week and on weekends or?
The museum itself is open Wednesday through Sunday,
Yeah.
10 to 5, I think it is, or 4:30.
Yeah, Alicia's just raving about the museum. Great people, highly recommend. Mark is asking, what's the main indigenous tribe that resided in the Steep Rock area?
That would have been the Weantenuck and the Putatuk. They are now part of the Scotticook tribe.
Thank you. And I was curious, you mentioned that, you can identify proteins on the tips of points. Have advances in technology sort of helped you kind of uncover any new information recently?
It hasn't helped me recently. I'm waiting to find out for this stuff coming back. Uh, it will help a lot with that. The stuff that we sent out with Jonathan Lothrop, that there's a lot of information that can be found there.
Gotcha.
And it's in parts of a country they've found where they've found what we would call uh, protein from a mastodon or mammoths on the points. I haven't seen any published indication of that in New England yet, but it's always possible because they were here at the same time. So, something to look forward to that may be uncovered down the road.
Yeah. Well, Craig, I just want to say thank you for this amazing masterclass. I just learned a ton. I really appreciate your time. And to everyone who joined us, thank you so very much. If you want to learn more about events coming up for Steep Rock Centennial, we welcome you to visit our website. And as I mentioned, we will be sending you a brief survey tomorrow with Craig's information and maybe some books he recommends. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening, and a special thanks to Craig. That was
Right.
wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Night, everybody.